Good afternoon and welcome speakers and the audience to this, the 18th All Energy Decarbonise webinar. Over 420 have registered, and I'm imagining you filling our virtual theatre for greening the blue economy, marine energy. I'm Judith Patton, Project Director of our duo of shows and the co-creator of All Energy way back at the start of the century. I'm delighted that we're now homing in on marine renewables, a topic very close to my heart as a proud fellow of the Society for Underwater Technology and a member of its Marine Renewables Energy Committee. With the SUT's input, marine renewables have been on our conference agenda right from the start in 2001. Whilst I talk briefly, my slide will help you get the greatest benefit possible during your time with us today and afterwards. What is important is that if you would like to ask questions or rate this webinar, you shrink your screen from full screen to be able to see where to do both things. And if you opt for attachments, you can also look ahead to the 3rd to 5th of November when we will be staging the All Energy Decarbonise Virtual Summit with up to 9 webinars over 3 days. But don't do that now. We want your 100% attention on the topic in hand. It was several months ago that our dynamic chair for this session, Sue Barr, chair of the UK Marine Energy Council and the 2018 winner of the SUT's Leonard Senior Award, said mid-October would be great for a webinar. She's a one-woman dynamo, famed not only for her impressive 18-year career in the offshore wind, wave and tidal industries, but for her can-do attitude. In early 2018, this saw her drive from Scotland to Bath during the Beast from the East. And more recently, it's seen her working tirelessly to ensure that the marine renewables community rise as one to respond to the recent BEIS consultation. I've been date challenged during the pandemic with all months merging in as one. However, even I realised October was looming and she'd been silent for a while. Did she perhaps want to postpone the webinar? Was she too busy on the consultation? Certainly not, said this determined woman. I just had to take a week out for operations as I came off my horse at 15 miles an hour, hit a telegraph pole and smashed my humerus. But I've learned to type left-handed and all is very much under control for the webinar. And so it was and is. Sue, I'd like to thank you for all you've done and are doing for the industry. Your knowledge, determination and dedication are second to none. Long may you continue to play a key role in driving renewable industry policy in the marine area in the UK and internationally. You are an inspiration, madam. Without more ado, I'd like to wish all of you here today and your families good health in these strange times, and then pass over to Sue and her stellar cast of speakers for what I know will be a stimulating 90 minutes. Over to you, Sue.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. What it can only be described as unnerving times for us all. I should also point out the fact I had not seen Judith's introduction, and I thank her for her kind words. But really, what is this about? It's about a sector that I am very passionate about, our marine energy industry here in the UK, and one that has some very determined and some very excellent and very knowledgeable people involved in that sector. For those of us that don't know, my name is Sue Barr. I'm chair of the UK Marine Energy Council, and I've been involved in marine energy for some 20 years now, which is showing my age. The UK is a world leader. We should not shy away from that. We lead in marine energy. We lead in the technology, the development of projects, our policy, and our knowledge capacity here in the UK. We have some of the best wave and tidal resources in Europe. And I, along with my colleagues across the sector, are absolutely determined to see this sector deliver not only for the technologies and for bringing forward the science and engineering, but also to develop an industry here in the UK. We recognise that this is not only an opportunity for the UK, but it's an opportunity for a global market, and we'll talk about that later. I'm delighted to have the panel that I have with me. These are some of the innovators and leaders in their field that have worked tirelessly to bring technology to our waters, but also to look at those challenges of reducing the cost of energy and being able to build into a global market. I'm also delighted that we have government and ministerial support. So my panel is divided between our technology developers and representation from the Welsh and Scottish government. Alongside that, we have had very strong support from our ministers and MPs in the lobbying that has gone on around the BEIS consultation. And as part of that, we have two pre-recorded introductions from some very supportive, very brilliant innovators in their own right. The first is Mr. Paul Wheelhouse, MSP. He is the Minister for Energy, Connectivity and the Islands in Scotland. Always a strong stalwart of the sector. In 2019, he was awarded the Outstanding Contribution by Scottish Renewables for his contribution to marine energy. I think this reflects our respect for him and his respect for our sector. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Wheelhouse, giving an introduction to this session.
Good afternoon and welcome to this all-energy webinar on marine energy. I'm sorry that I'm unable to join you live on this occasion, but I am delighted to have this opportunity to provide a short opening address. Firstly, I'd like to thank Sue Barr for organising today's event and for chairing what I'm sure will be a lively panel discussion. And thanks once again to Judith Patton and the All Energy team for hosting this webinar. And I sincerely hope we are able to gather in Glasgow in May next year for the fabulous All Energy experience. Marine energy has rightly been a feature of All Energy since it was first held in 2001. And I know that some participants in today's event have been involved in the sector throughout that time, and some for even longer. As Scotland's Energy Minister, I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with many of you over the last 4 years. And as a result, I'm in no doubt about the ingenuity, the passion and resilience of the marine energy sector in Scotland, a sector that has achieved much, perhaps despite the many obstacles that have been placed in your path. Aligned with those qualities in terms of ingenuity and perseverance is a level of practical experience and knowledge in Scotland's sector which is unrivalled anywhere in the world. To name but a few examples, this includes the European Marine Energy Centre in Orkney, the world's leading test and accreditation centre for wave and tidal energy. The pioneering tidal stream projects from companies including Nova Innovation, Orbital Marine Power and Cymic Atlantis Energy, and our internationally renowned Wave Energy Scotland programme, which has in so many ways helped keep the wave energy dream alive and will now see deployment of half-scale wave energy devices in real sea conditions in Orkney later this year, and that is a genuine step forward. Crucially though, we now have a compelling, coherent and evidence-based case for providing the right support to enable marine energy's journey towards commercial deployment. The industry's collective response to the UK Government's recent consultation on the Contracts for Difference mechanism, reflected in the Scottish Government's own response, has resulted in BEIS calling for more detailed evidence on marine energy. And I know that many of you will have responded, and I thank you for doing so. This very welcome development represents a critical moment for the marine energy sector. It provides the Westminster Government with another opportunity, yet another I should say, to provide a clear signal that marine energy has a role to play in the transition to a net zero society. And this time just in advance of the all-critical COP26 event in Glasgow, and we believe they must take this opportunity. The UK Government must make clear that it favours and supports the development of a homegrown response to the global climate emergency and to the commercialisation of what could be vital technologies for the whole global community. An ambitious and creative approach is needed to support both deployment of the existing project pipeline and further innovation in both wave and tidal energy. That ambition of an approach has been lacking, in my humble opinion, in UK ministers in the 4 years I've been in post in Scotland. So I hope my counterparts at UK level will deliver this time and really do so. Unlocking the immense energy potential of our oceans can help to diversify our energy supplies, create high quality jobs and boost the Treasury's coffers, while utilising our knowledge and experience to put us front and centre of an enormous global export market. The Scottish Government is proud to have played its part in the success of the industry to date, through programmes including our Saltire Tidal Energy Challenge Fund and our support for Wave Energy Scotland. Had we the policy levers to directly control revenue support, I have no doubt we would be powering on towards commercial scale projects in Scotland. However, in the meantime, We will continue to lobby UK ministers on support and to work closely with you to explore the options for providing further support and the right policy framework. In closing, though, I want to thank you for all your work to date, and in particular to thank the members of our Scottish Marine Energy Industry Working Group for all their time and support. Let's build on our achievements and continue to showcase them to as wide an audience as possible. Next year's COP26, when the eyes of the world will be on Scotland, and indeed the UK's government policies, will be one such opportunity. So I hope you have an enjoyable and productive session and a great year ahead, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Stay safe in the meantime. Thank you very much for listening to me today.
And that's thanks to Minister Wheelhouse in joining us during this time. And I think I would echo his sentiment in terms of building on our achievements. Our second ministerial interjection here is from Mr. Ken Skates, MS, the Minister for the Economy and Transport in North Wales. Mr. Skates has a keen interest in developing skills and opportunities in her region. And given that there is the More Ice project and others, he has a really keen interest in seeing this sector develop around the North Wales area. So over to him.
Bernard, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be able to join you today, albeit virtually, to assess the benefits from the marine energy sector for Wales, because renewable energy has the potential to play a hugely important role in a strong, resilient and sustainable economic recovery, not only by providing a diverse, more stable and resilient supply in line with Wales's net zero ambitions, but also in providing access to highly skilled, well-paid jobs embedded within local communities. And over £123 million has been invested within the marine sector in Wales to date. We have 16 marine developers active in Wales in a variety of technology levels, and Wales has provided significant support to all levels of the innovation journey, from early stage innovation via our Smart Cymru programme through to our European funded €100 million marine energy programme, where we've invested in 11 projects and supported nearly £111 million of investment to date, including both Bombora Wave Power and Marine Power Systems, who are part of today's panel. We consider the marine energy industry to have significant medium to long-term potential for us, and we're working closely with the industry to ensure Welsh businesses are well placed to understand and to take up the supply chain opportunities from marine energy, in tandem, of course, with the innovation challenges the emerging sector will present. Now, our technology developers have forged incredibly strong links with local engineering and environmental specialists in Wales, businesses such as Fawn Trackway from Anglesey and Ledwood Engineering and Mainstay Marine in Pembrokeshire. They've all gained critical experience within the sector over the past decade. This has resulted in significant regional supply chain benefits, and in some instances, projects have achieved over 70% local content. That's quite an astonishing degree of local content. And that's proof that embedding our local businesses within the supply chain at an early stage will enable them to grow right alongside technology and project developers. It'll also provide sustainable long-term employment across Wales. So the elephant in the room is, of course, the need for the sector to receive real, sustainable, long-term policy support from UK government to ensure that the UK retains its leading position within the marketplace. We believe that by providing access to realistic levels of revenue support across the sector, we'll bring forward larger scale multi-array projects off the drawing board and into the water. And we responded to the Direct Bay's call for evidence on marine technology just recently. And I hope all developers took this opportunity to provide the evidence to support our arguments for the past 5 years to have an appropriate financial support mechanism. This would then allow developers to test their technology at scale and enable real, tangible cost reductions, and in the longer term, of course, make them more cost competitive against more established technologies such as offshore wind. As you can tell, we in Wales believe that the marine energy sector is one worth supporting, and I really want to thank you for your time this afternoon, and I hope that the rest of the session proves to be incredibly valuable.
And thank you again to the Minister. We can't underestimate how important that support is for this sector going forward, and how we need to work collaboratively in order to develop and win those skills, keep them here in the UK and develop our sector. Just very briefly, what does that mean? And I wanted to set the scene for greening our blue economy by really looking back at what is the opportunity, what do we have here in the UK, and what are we proposing we do as we go forward. Currently, the UK has over 1 gigawatt of leased tidal stream sites, and 10 megawatts of that is operational. That has delivered over 30 gigawatt hours of live electrons onto our grid in the coming years. So we've had 30 gigawatts of power go onto our grid from live tidal stream projects. We have another 382 megawatts of sites in Welsh and English waters that are waiting for development. So we have gone forward, we've developed the projects, and we've looked at how we can deliver here in our own UK waters. This has the opportunity to deliver 1.5 billion net cumulative benefit to the UK economy by 2030. In order to establish the route to market and bring forth these projects, we as the Marine Energy Council and as an industry have responded to the Bayes consultation. As part of that, our supporting evidence was working across the sector to find out really where are our costs going and what is the opportunity. And some of the results that we found working in collaboration with the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult and with those developing projects and technologies in the UK have been quite astounding. The tidal stream industry alone could generate a net cumulative benefit to the UK by 2030 of 1.4 billion. This is not only a benefit that comes to the UK, but it includes export potentials, 4,000 jobs, and considerable advantage in the UK in the international market. Wave energy, we understand, is at a slightly earlier stage of development, but the opportunity there is, again, incredibly large. It could add a net positive contribution to the UK economy by 2040 of 4 billion and create over 8,000 jobs. We feel, given the need for economic growth, for development of our peripheral economies, and for building on those skills and expertise that we hold here in the UK, the marine energy industry is a real opportunity that we can't afford to miss. Both tidal stream and wave energy have the potential to generate high quality, highly skilled jobs across the breadth of the UK. And through my speakers' presentations, you'll see how far-reaching this industry can be. We have indigenous supply chain based in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, southwest and the south coast of England, with excellent engineering and maritime skills that can support the growth of this burgeoning sector. In that regard, the marine energy sector can help level up regions of the UK in need of regeneration, including those areas that would be considered post-industrial or maritime focused, and look to diversify those skills, those businesses, and adapt to the opportunity. Due to our incredible maritime heritage and the indigenous resources, both in wave, tidal, floating wind, and offshore wind that we have here in the UK, we need to support and develop UK companies as part of the global marine energy supply chain. In order to deliver this opportunity, strategic support is required to help deliver the government's objectives. The government has 3 key objectives in this political time: economic growth, a green energy transition, and maintaining world lead in those technologies where we have proven experience. Marine energy fits into all of these boxes, and this is why we think forward investment and support of the sector by UK government is so important. All of the speakers on the panel today will be highlighting how they, as individual companies or as part of governments, meet this challenge, and to highlight the exciting opportunities that exist for the UK to remain at the forefront of this blue economy, whilst we green our own UK energy mix. I really hope you're going to enjoy the presentations, and I'm not going to talk any longer. So I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. Oliver Ragg is the Commercial Director of Orbital Marine Power, and he'll be introducing us to his technology and the opportunities that tidal stream technology being built in the UK presents. Over to you, Oliver.
Hi, thanks very much, Sue. And thank you very much to the organisers of All Energy and Judith specifically for inviting me to speak at this event today. So here we go. Right, we're just going to crack into this. So as we said, so Orbital Marine Power, we're a tidal energy technology company developing the world's leading floating tidal turbine. Had some deployment activity up in Orkney at the European Marine Energy Centre, and this picture that you can see here running is the SR2000. This is our groundbreaking demonstration project. It really showed the benefits of our technology: low cost installation and maintenance, simplified construction methodologies, very akin and very similar to that of shipbuilding. In total, the SR2000 produced 3.2 gigawatt hours to the UK grid, peaking at 2.2 megawatts of output. It was on station in Orkney for a total of 450 days. And at some points, a prototype machine produced 7% of Orkney's entire electricity demand. And this is kind of unprecedented for a prototype tidal energy machine. The other thing that we're really happy about with this is the fact that we kept on station for 450 days, and that was with 30 interventions, the quickest of which we undertook in 45 minutes, from identifying the fault with the machine to actually fixing it. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. This picture here kind of stirs up in me personally some kind of bittersweet sentiment in some way. It's sad, obviously, to see the decommissioning of the SR2000, this groundbreaking piece of technology.
So my apologies, everyone. We seem to have lost Oliver briefly, which is one of the risks of running these live sessions. We'll give him a moment and see if we can get back to him.
That we've brought into the machine now. So we've introduced pitching hubs, so the blades will actually feather into the resource to maximize the energy extraction. We've also extended the rotor diameter from 16 meters to a world-leading 20-meter rotor diameter. Another critical innovation, as you see here, is how we're lifting the turbine legs up, so the turbine's actually out of the water so we can access them. And depending on your cultural reference, you can either look at that as a DeLorean, as in Back to the Future, or a Tesla Model X kind of activation that we have there. So we're currently working through the build of this machine with incredibly high UK content. And I've taken a pause here from our kind of normal video and images to put together a bit of a graph. I personally find I quite like looking at a nice graph. And what this is going to explain here is looking at a nominal project using Orbital Marine Power technology with a capital expenditure of £80 million. We haven't said how many megawatts this could be. There's other activity we can look at with that. But what we're doing is we've broken down the machine into the various different subsystems. So what we see is the export opportunity, the really high, readily exportable subsystems. There's two of those which are currently built in the UK with the O2. These are the blades, and then also the electrical skids and auxiliary systems. But then we also have two of our subsystems, which currently aren't built in the UK, but we believe are readily exportable subsystems. So these are the pitch and the hub, and also the nacelle. So the UK has the capability to build these subsystems, but investment is required in dedicated facilities. And that's linked very closely to what Sue was talking about in terms of this market support mechanism and this signal that's required. We've then got the other subsystems, which we see as more of a domestic opportunity. So the UK is currently building these parts of our turbine for the O2 project, and there's a capability to scale those up for the future UK opportunity. There's also the possibility to export in some of the first demonstrator projects. But really, the activity on the left-hand side, which makes up almost 50% of the capital expenditure of the project, these are all parts of the system which are readily exportable. And if we look at countries like Germany and Denmark, these are the subsystems which are being exported within the wind industry. And the domestic opportunity, in again looking at the wind side, is what the UK is currently looking to secure in wind, both in fixed offshore and floating offshore. At the moment, with tidal energy, we can secure all of this within our domestic market. We also can secure 50% of that for all export opportunities. But to help try and bring that into life a bit more, I thought I'd highlight where those different subsystems are across the turbine itself, because it's been sometimes hard to understand that. So what we're looking at in terms of what we're building at the moment in the UK, we're building the blades, and then we're also building the electrical skid, which sits within inside the turbine itself. So you've got the pitch and hub, and also the nacelle, as we said, currently built outside of the UK. And then the rest of the kind of superstructure, the leg retraction system, the mooring, and the installation is all being built within the UK. This is over 75% UK content within this machine. And our supply chain really is the length and breadth of the country. Up in Orkney, we're working with the European Marine Energy Centre, where the O2 will be deployed. The kind of head office of Orbital Marine Power, the original office based in Kirkwall, is where our electrical system is assembled. We're working with Layton Marine on the mooring and cable installation. As we move down into Scotland, we've used Scottish steel produced by Liberty Steel and Motherwell. That was then shipped over to Gray Fabrication, where the heavy steel fabrication was completed. And then the main turbine sections were moved up to Texo in Dundee, where the main turbine manufacturer is all being brought together. Engineering management is being completed by the Orbital Marine Power office in Edinburgh. We've also got a strong level of content across the north of the UK as well. So TSP Engineering have been working on our mooring connection system. Bonds Heavy Castings have produced our load-bearing heavy castings on the system. Denley Hydraulics have produced the leg retraction system to actuate that lifting of the turbine nacelles out of the water. And we've worked with Shepcote Engineering to supply the hydraulic cylinders as well. Moving across, we've heard mention previously of Fawn Trackway, and Fawn Trackway are providing our anchor manufacturing. And then we have a cluster down towards the south coast south of England, working with Beckhoff Automation to provide some of the electrical supply systems, ETA on the cable connectors, AC Marine Composites to provide the composite blade manufacture, and Strainstall, who are providing some work on the moorings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't the fixed orbital marine power supply chain that we'll see moving forward into every single project that we work on. However, I hope you can see what it does demonstrate is there really is strength and depth within the UK supply chain. I could give you a map of the SR2000, which would actually have a very different blend of companies that were involved in that project, but with the same level of UK content. So backing up what Sue said, we really do have the engineering capability and prowess to secure this opportunity within the UK. And to really help bring this to life a bit more, moving through the different parts of the turbine we talked about, got the blades. You can see these being manufactured in Gosport by AC Marine Composites, and this is the castings that the blades will be manufactured in. We've got the nacelles, so these are the gearboxes which have been shipped to Germany, and now they've actually started the assembly, and we're moving through factory acceptance testing with that activity. We've got the pitch and hub over in Sweden. My thanks to our supplier SKF for supplying this rather lovely picture here, which someone else, to draw another analogy, told me the other day he thought it looked quite a bit like a TIE fighter, which my son was very happy with. He agreed with it, thought Darth Vader could definitely be sat in the middle there. The electrical skids manufactured up in Orkney, and you can see the team there in our fabrication facility actually fitting the whole system together there. We've got the leg retraction system being produced by Denley Hydraulics and Leeds. So if you can imagine, this sits within the main turbine itself, the main superstructure. And to help bring that to life a bit more, I've shown you this picture. So what that system is doing is providing a hydraulic actuation to move the legs that you can see here, which have been installed onto the O2 now up in Dundee. We've got the structure. You can see a rather lovely aerial shot of the nose cone on transport to Dundee there. And you see two of the sections now actually welded together in the facility up in Texo. So there's another two parts of the turbine to be put together on there. They're all on site at the moment and being pulled together. And again, referencing back to our Welsh supply chain, you can actually see the anchor basket on transportation across from Anglesey up to Dundee and then onto Orkney at the moment. Now we talked about installation up in Orkney. What you can see that we're doing here is we're just testing an installation of our anchor basket. So we do that onshore first, so that reduces the risk of any of the activity that we do offshore. And what we're doing there again is using the local supply chain, using the crane providers, we're using the installation providers up in Orkney. So it's a really strong embedded UK supply chain. And I suppose all of this, what's it doing? We're looking not just to provide clean green energy, we're actually looking to build a new industry. This is a strong industrial story that we've got here, building on those heritage roots of shipbuilding as a maritime nation and kind of bringing that through now in this green economy that we're creating. So my thanks very much to everyone at All Energy. I'd really welcome you, if you're listening today, to sign up to some of our social media feeds. You'll see a number of excellent images and videos coming through on the turbine build from the team that's building it, from part of our supply chain. So please do that. If you have any questions, very much welcome answering those in the session. And look forward to being able to update you in the future as we move forward with the build of the O2 and hopefully have this installed up in Orkney early next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver. And although you can't hear the applause, I feel it is there. And what a fantastic insight into the build of the O2. And I certainly feel like we've had a premiere of what the technology will look like going forward, with some fabulous insights into both how it's being built and the future of that technology. So it's very exciting for the sector, and we look forward to seeing you in the water very soon. My next speaker is Craig Frew, who is the leader of the low carbon innovation team within the Scottish Government. The Scottish Government have shown very strong support for marine energy, and as you would have heard Minister Wheelhouse speak to the Scottish Government Marine Energy Working Group, which has been really integral to bringing forward the sector there. I'd also like to encourage you all to put your questions forward into the comments box for both Craig and Oliver following this session, and we'll try and get to those as we move along. So I'd like to make an introduction to Craig Frew.
Thanks, Sue, and thanks to yourself and Judith for all your work arranging the session and for having me on today. I won't speak for long. I'm sure many of you out there will be very interested in hearing from the companies that we have on the webinar today, and the very exciting projects like Oliver has just described there for the Orbital O2 project. As Sue said, I'm Craig Frew. I lead the low carbon innovation team in Scottish Government, and for the past 2 years, me and my team have worked with many of you across the sector to deploy capital grant funding on projects like the Orbital O2, and also run the Scottish Marine Energy Industry Working Group. We also have a fantastic team across the Scottish public sector who have been involved in the wave and tidal sector for much longer than I have, and we've benefited greatly from the expertise of those in Highlands and Islands Enterprise, Scottish Enterprise, WES, Crown Estate Scotland and Marine Scotland, so thanks to them as well. As has been said, the Scottish Government has a very long history of supporting marine renewable energy through both the highs and lows of the sector, but we're very pleased with the progress that's been made and pleased with where we are now, the progress that's been made in the context of really quite challenging circumstances at times. As the Energy Minister Paul Wheelhouse outlined earlier, we've got a number of successes that we could speak to, but you've all heard those before, and I think it's important that we do look forward in the sector now, so I'll not go into detail on those successes. The Scottish Government's support for marine energy has been driven by a desire to quite simply create jobs and add economic value, not just from our abundant natural resources, but also from the competitive advantage that many of you across the sector have developed and worked hard to develop over the past 2 decades. And with that in mind, I wanted to talk about the current social and economic context and what that means for marine renewables from a Scottish Government perspective. Firstly, in terms of economic recovery, and then secondly, in terms of net zero. Earlier this year, the Advisory Group for Economic Recovery, chaired by Benny Higgins, provided a report and a set of recommendations to the Scottish ministers, stressing the need for an investment-led economic recovery to the current crisis, and the need to make the most of areas where we have a very real competitive advantage. Now, I've spent some time recently reviewing work that our enterprise agencies and others have done over the past decade. And this work's consistently highlighted the extensive Scottish expertise in marine engineering. It's not new information, it's well understood. Scotland and the UK has massive transferable skills and expertise and facilities from industries such as fisheries, offshore wind, oil and gas, shipbuilding, as Oliver mentioned earlier, ports and harbours. But I think we also need to recognise the value of the knowledge economy in addition to our industrial capability as a key area of employment and economic benefit where marine energy sector already contributes significantly. Areas like our academic testing and certification expertise. Scotland is home to EMEC in Orkney, which has tested more wave and tidal turbines than any other single site in the world. We have a range of research and development facilities and a significant number of academics, project managers, developers, technologists, all doing research into marine renewable technologies. These are high value, secure jobs already anchored in Scotland and the UK. So from an economic recovery perspective, I think the marine energy sector is very well positioned to add value if given the opportunity to do so. In terms of net zero, almost everything that we're doing just now, whether that be on skills, business support or investment, is focused on sustainability and ensuring a just transition to net zero by 2045. Later this year, we will publish an update to our climate change plan, and that will set out the policies and proposals for reaching net zero. But what's become clear as we go through that planning process is that the asks for net zero are far-reaching and challenging, and they ask very far-reaching and challenging questions of our energy system. And although many of the solutions required to support the energy system transition are mature and already competitive within the energy marketplace, tightening emission standards globally introduces a new set of challenges, and we can't afford to become complacent and place too great a resilience on incumbent solutions to answer these kind of questions. The Committee on Climate Change themselves have been quite clear on this point in their advice to both Scottish and UK governments, and I think the marine energy sector have a key role to play in this respect. So just finally then, with all that context in mind, I wanted to talk a bit about what we do going forward. The UK government call for evidence last month was very much a welcome signal of a potential change in their approach towards marine renewables. I know that everyone across the sector worked very hard to give our colleagues in the UK government the information that they needed. If the UK government and BEIS do signal a shift in support for marine, then there are two areas that in Scotland we'll be looking to turn our attention to: strengthening the current project pipeline and the continued deployment of capital grant support. So we already have a project pipeline that can benefit from support now, but we might find ourselves very quickly thinking about how to strengthen that for future rounds of funding. And across the public sector, we'll be thinking about how we support that strategically in order to maximise the value of our natural assets and also ensure that the projects deliver on the potential that they promise. We know that we need to be agile when doing that and ensure that we accelerate developments whilst also protecting public value. In terms of capital grant, we think that this will continue to be very important to drive innovation across the sector. Technology development isn't a linear process from R&D through to deployment, and even with a market support mechanism in place, we should still be looking for disruptive cost reduction through innovation of marine energy technologies. The Scottish Government wants to continue its support into the sector for these sorts of activities, And whilst I can't provide any specifics just now, we are actively thinking about the next phase of our support for wave energy, and also how we support future funding into the tidal stream sector. So with that, it looks like it'll be a very exciting time for the marine energy sector ahead, and I look forward to working with you all on it. I think I'll leave it there and pass back to Sue and let others speak. So thank you.
Craig, many thanks. I think it's really interesting that you alluded to innovation, and we know that innovation drives a whole economy and ecology of additional innovation, and marine energy certainly has shown to do that. I want to bring us to our next speaker. Helen Donovan works in the Industrial Transformation Division within the Welsh Government. She will be very well known to those of us operating within Wales. She is a member of the board of Marine Energy Wales and has been involved in the sector for a long time. So I'd like to hand you over to Helen Donovan.
Great, thanks, Sue, and thanks and greetings from a sunny Cardiff today. And it'll be quite interesting. A lot of the things that I'm going to be saying, it really sort of backs up a number of points that Craig has touched on so far. What I'd like to really chat about to you today is where we are in Wales at the moment, put a little bit more flesh on the bones that the Minister has highlighted to you. A couple of strategic investments and how we're hoping that those investments will take the sector forward. As such, very much look at the supply chain opportunities and where next for the sector, and set that within a net zero sort of context really going forward, and on our ambitions on innovation, supply chain, etc. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we've done within Wales is we've sort of empowered Marine Energy Wales, which is the trade body that's active in Wales, to actually keep an eye on the sector as such and see how it's grown. And as you can see from the slide that you've got in front of you, we've had impressive sort of investment over the last year of over £120 million. That's really been levered from very small investments via our Smart Cymru sort of support, where somebody's got a grand idea and they want to have a little look at that, through to really large scale sort of European funding that we've had there. It was €100 million. And as the Minister mentioned, we've had 11 projects to date that's leveraged around about 111 million into Wales there. I know that Sam and Graham will be going through their wave technology projects in southwest Wales in quite some detail. So I'll focus on providing an overview of some of the other companies that we have, and particularly Monesto from Sweden, who has a base up in Holyhead. So we've supported Monesto in a couple of rounds of funding there. The initial one was back in 2018, where we supported them with about £9 million of funding for their deep green tidal stream device testing. That was a single 500 kilowatt device that was deployed in Holyhead Deep, which is 6 kilometres west of Anglesey. They've had some great learning from that. And following the successful completion of that project, we reinvested around £14 million there, which uprated their original sort of device by at least 50%. And they've been doing a lot of in situ sort of testing and taking the project and the device in and out of the water to see how they can actually innovate some of the systems that they've got for operations and maintenance. But not only have they been working on the innovation, which they should, but they've actually been engaging with quite a local level of engineering expertise, etc. And they've actually opened their own sort of assembly hall within the port of Holyhead. This has had quite a knock-on effect locally in terms of the engagement on the engineering sort of side of things, as well as operations and maintenance. So that gives you an idea of the dare I say it, the commitment of companies that we've got, not only in Wales, but obviously Orbital has gone through their supply chain sort of activities with you, that the sector is really focused on bringing as much of the UK's businesses along with them in the future on that side. So next slide, please. In terms of the strategic investments, there are two that I'd like to bring to your attention, really. One is via the City deal that we have at Swansea Bay. We've made an investment of £60 million alongside UK government on sort of 4 projects, and that really is around a marine energy test area that is being run by Marine Energy Wales. You also have a Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence that the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult has put in place down in Pembroke Dock there, plus port infrastructure, which I think is a key ask for us across the whole of the UK. And it's very interesting that Bays last week have started a conversation in terms of port development for offshore renewables. And I've no doubt that that's not just a one-off, it's probably going to be an ongoing sort of support element there. And the final area I wanted to touch was this demonstration zone that will operated by WaveHub, and it's going through the consenting process at the moment. The other area I wanted to pick up on really was Sue is involved with the Tiger Regeneration Project of Ramsey Sound, and I'm very grateful that Sue and the Catapult managed to convince UK and French governments that Pembrokeshire is part of the Channel, the English Channel, and the investment around that. So Sue is working very hard on that to bring it forward at Ramsey Sound, and looking at the synergies with the Pembroke Dock Marine project that we have that's moving ahead at great speed down in Pembroke Dock. Next slide, please. I think you'll find a continual sort of theme from us in Wales and Scotland in looking at the supply chain expertise. Ours is very much focused around the oil and gas sector, with the likes of Valero and the LNG facilities down in Pembrokeshire, and obviously the offshore renewables along the North Wales coast. So we've got quite an active sort of engineering professional services sector in the area around, some very active sort of vessel operators. So I think that they've managed to grasp the opportunity that's come forward with the investment that's been made by UK government, Welsh government and Scottish government here to take things forward in this sort of area. So we undertook a piece of supply chain work with the Catapult the back end of last year, and it actually just reinforced some of the engineering and environmental capability that we have here, as well as the test facilities that are operational via Swansea University with their tank testing at one end of the system, plus a lot of bathymetry sort of expertise and modelling that is via Bangor University and Swansea University as well. But I think what we really need to focus on, perhaps on the next slide, is to look at where we go forward, because I think if you're looking at the way forward, you're really looking to actually very much focus on the clear government support that needs to be put into place here going forward. So we've identified, I think, 3 short-term steps on the next slide, which are fundamental to underpinning the sector's growth, really. We firmly believe, the same as Scottish Government, that there needs to be a clear UK government policy direction for marine renewables that is perhaps slightly outside of the offshore wind and CFD. So we're very interested in revenue support, IPPA sort of support via either existing or new mechanisms. We could be looking at innovation support, for instance, and capital support via the Shared Prosperity Fund that is on the cards as a mechanism, or we could be looking to push bays very much down the line of providing dedicated revenue support for wave and tidal stream sort of projects. Because to my mind, really, I'm very positive that bays have actually moved forward with a Marine Call for Evidence on the back of such support. I think everybody from the sector put forward to the consultation earlier this year. But I think what we really need to push for at the moment is getting them to move forward and act on the views that have been expressed, and recognise from a net zero perspective that offshore wind and indeed onshore and solar are really not going to meet the net zero challenge that everybody has signed up to going forward. So that is really important, that we get that underpinning from the UK government to move the sector forward. I think from some of the examples that you've heard so far with Orbital, myself with the likes of Monesto in North Wales, and some of the words you probably heard from Sam and Graham going forward. Local supply chain capability, we're hoping to really establish that as a growth mechanism for Wales, particularly in the coastal communities where a lot of this expertise is already based. So we're hoping that this base will actually grow with the industry over the next 10 to 15 years. And we also recognise that the UK doesn't have all of that expertise to hand. So we need to be filling key gaps within the supply chain here with foreign direct investment and looking at working with the key companies there to look at maximising the local content that goes into some of those subsystems as a thought. But I am very hopeful that we'll be moving forward positively over the next 18 months if we act together. And it's the same messages that's coming out from all directions. And I think I'll draw that to a close, really. But I hope it gives you an overview of where we are in Wales and how we're very much focused on promoting this industry as one for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen, and the industry extends its thanks to Welsh Government and your First Minister for its continued support. And I think your presentation highlights the importance of that local supply chain growth, peripheral economies, and what we can do on the ground to ensure that we maintain that growth going forward. We're moving forward, and I don't want to take up any more time, so I'd like to introduce my next speaker. Dr. Graham Foster is the Chief Technology Officer of Marine Power Systems. Marine Power Systems have been developing a suite of technologies, both wave, floating wind, and combined technologies in South Wales and Swansea. So over to you, Graham.
Thank you, Sue. And thank you also to Judith and the organisers at All Energy. So I'm just going to navigate to my presentation. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to give you explain to you the vision of MPS, explain our technology, talk about some of the progress we've made with sea testing and our timelines going forward. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the relevance of wave energy in the blue economy. I'm going to talk about the levelized cost of energy and why wave energy in particular we think is very important. So our vision at MPS is to unlock the power of the oceans. And we've developed a technology system for extracting the maximum amount of ocean energy from an area of seabed. And this means we will look at the seabed area in question in discussion with our customers, and then we will advise what the right combination of devices is to get the maximum bang for their buck. And to do that, we have a technology portfolio that comprises of wave sub, which is a wave energy device, wind sub, which is wind energy, and dual sub, which is combined wind and wave energy on the same platform. And what we can do is optimize the arrangement of these devices to get the maximum return on the investment that our customers put into the site. So to achieve this, MPS is developing two pieces of technology. The first piece of technology that we're developing is the platform technology. So we've developed a common platform. So whether we're creating a device to supply wave energy or wind energy or a combination of the two, the underlying platform technology is the same for all of those devices. And we put a lot of effort into making sure that our platform is a class-leading piece of technology. It's highly manufacturable, it's transportable without any specialist vessels. The deployment system is largely automatic once it's connected to the mooring lines. It's very stable. And of course, stabilities will always be achieved with any type of platform, but what we focused on is achieving stability, but with the minimum amount of material content. So our platform will contain less than 200 tons of structural steel per megawatt of energy that the platform generates. That's very low. That's a lot lower than most other platforms. It's maintainable and it's survivable. All of the things that we see as being important for successful exploitation of marine energy. The other piece of technology that's unique to MPS is our proprietary in-house wave energy solution. Our wave energy solution has a number of advantages that we're very proud of, and we think will truly unlock the potential for wave energy. First one is that the system has a highly efficient orbital energy capture system. So as most of you all know, the wave energy is actually a subsurface orbital energy flow. So that's why it's important to tap that energy flow directly, and therefore we're able to access 100% of the energy and not leave some of the energy passed by the machine by only taking the heave energy or only taking the surge energy. We can tune the system to a wide variety of sea states, whether it's small, sort of choppyish waves or long periods, large waves. We can operate at a very high efficiency, whatever the sea state. And the combination of these things allows our device to have a high capacity factor. And that capacity factor is comparable to modern wind turbines. And we've seen this as being a key metric as to achieving a low cost of energy. That the capacity factor has to be right up there. And we're pleased to say that we can achieve that with our technology. From a more practical point of view, the machine has a docked survival mode, so those floats in the picture can be drawn right down onto the structure and locked safe against the structure in extreme waves. It's very important that we're not trying to manage the floats in storm situations. And the device also has a maintainable surface configuration without removing the machine from the mooring. So the moorings can be adjusted and there's a stable surface configuration for the device to be accessed for maintenance. And of course, low cost interventions, very important for keeping overall costs under control. With regards to progress that we've already made, we've tested our WaveSub device at Falmouth, completed at the end of the summer last year. It's a very successful test, but also we learned an incredible amount from this. We proved the key advantages of our technology. We're able to transport the device a long way. We towed the device 160 nautical miles from Pembrokeshire to Falmouth. The installation and maintenance of the device at sea went smoothly. Although I would say that the entire test was of course not without any event, but we were able to intervene and sort things out because of the strategy we have around maintenance. And we generated grid compliant power from the device. We're also able to remotely control the machine from shore, essentially increased our technology capabilities as a business such that we're confident to embark on our current project, which is a full-scale demonstrator that we're currently working on. So the timelines for our business and for the full-scale demonstrator. So right now we're designing the full-scale machine. Manufacturing will be carried out from the end of 2021 through 2022, and then commissioning will start at the end of 2022, and testing will be ongoing through 2023. And that program will finish at the end of 2023. We may choose to extend that at the time, depending on a number of factors around how the test is going and what we want to do, what we want to prioritize as a business at that point. Commercially, in parallel, we're bringing together the designs for our Generation 1 commercial devices, and the aim there is to have a certified design basis for those machines available around the start of 2022. And then that will allow the customer engagement that we've got ongoing at the moment to enter a new stage where we can talk seriously to our customers about projects and enter into tendering processes for projects. And then our ambition is to be able to supply devices from 2024 onwards. So to talk a little bit more about the commercial potential of wave energy generally, I think the first place to look is the cost. And we know that there is a perception that wave energy is going to be more expensive than wind energy. And what we've done, therefore, is a lot of work to firstly convince ourselves that it's important to progress with the work we're doing, but also to be able to talk in forums such as this and explain why we believe that there's a huge potential for wave energy, and that any higher costs are actually going to be very short-lived, and that the costs will quickly catch up with costs that we've seen for fixed offshore wind, which everyone has agreed are completely acceptable and very promising from a commercial point of view going forward. So we developed a Lca model with Black & Veatch, and all of the cost inputs and yield estimates were vetted by Black & Veatch. It was a condition of them doing this work for us that we weren't able to interfere. And of course, they did push back on a lot of the things we did, but ultimately, we were both very happy with the outcome of the study. I think just if you can, the graph is self-explanatory, but what we're seeing is that initially at small scale, of course, wave energy and floating wind energy are more expensive, but as the scale increases, the costs quickly come down and align with the costs that we're seeing now for fixed offshore wind. We're aware that it's possible to fudge LCOE models to try and get the answer you want. So we wanted to make sure that our work was credible and stood up to external review. So what we did is, using all of the same assumptions, we actually inputted the cost of fixed offshore wind into our model, and we used the data from BVG's 2019 Guide to a Modern Offshore Wind Farm, which is the best and most comprehensive and up-to-date study of costs for offshore wind. And we inputted the relevant costs into our model, and we kept all of the variables such as the resource, the distance from shore, the performance of the wind turbine generator, the cost of capital, etc., etc. All of those things were kept consistent. And really the overall conclusion of this work was that it's all about the scale. So if we can get the scale, then the costs are very similar to fixed offshore wind. And again, what we thought lends credibility to this work is that we made all of the same assumptions, all of the same background engineering work was carried out for the floating wind aspect of our technology. And what we saw is that all of these technologies align to costs that are in the 40 to 50 pounds per megawatt hour range, which I think everyone agrees is the right place we need to be for marine energy, whether it be wave energy, floating wind, or a combination of the two. Just a little bit more about why wave energy is important for the blue economy. There's a couple of things particular to wave energy that we think are very important. First one is that wave energy is desynchronized from wind energy, and this improves the consistency of the energy supply. It's related to latitude. Essentially, the further away you get from the wind systems, the low pressure systems that generate the wave energy, the better the desynchronization between wind and wave, and the more consistent the output. And the closer you are to the low pressure systems that generate the wind in the first place, and the decorrelation isn't so good. But pretty much wherever you are, there's a very worthwhile decorrelation between wind and wave, and this provides much smoother power output, and we know that's a good thing for the energy mix. As I mentioned on my last slide, the LCOE from wave energy will fall rapidly and be comparable with wind, and wave energy is a vast global resource. Sue mentioned this in her introduction. The global wave energy resource is absolutely huge, and this is a fantastic export opportunity for the UK. And right now, the UK has a really, really significant technology advantage in wave energy, and this means that the OEMs and the highest value parts of the supply chain can be captured here. And again, as has already been mentioned, the industry needs a support mechanism to allow us to get to the next stage whilst we come down this cost curve, so that the technology is the marine energy technology and wave energy technology is cost comparable to wind technology. And the work that we've done leads us to believe that actually this isn't a huge delta. It's not going to take a huge amount of time and won't require a vast amount of support from government to get to this place that we all want, where the technology is cost competitive with wind and can stand on its own 2 feet and compete in the energy market without subsidies. Another slide, this is very similar to the slide that Oliver presented, so I won't go into it, but the trends are the same. A UK-wide supply chain, over 70%, probably I think for our quarter-scale project and for our full-scale project, I think we'll be as high as 80% UK content, and widely distributed around the UK, and in particular in regions like Scotland, Cornwall, Wales, coastal regions, all places that can benefit from regeneration and decentralization. And this is a real positive of marine energy that can't really be offered by any other of the energy sources currently being used. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to interacting with you shortly when we have the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Much appreciated. And as you were speaking, I was watching the questions come online. I think you addressed a lot of them in your presentation. We're going to move now to the next speaker, which is Sam Layton, the Managing Director of Bombora Wave Power. You'll note from Sam's accent, he's not originally from Pembrokeshire. And I want this to highlight the inward investment and the companies that are coming to the UK because of the interest in our Indigenous resource and the supply chain and skills we have here. Sam, over to you, and then we'll take some questions as a panel. Many thanks.
And good afternoon to you all. Yes, Sue alluded to my Australian background, and one of the things that Australia has is lots of waves, and the founders of Bombora certainly were at the beach and looking at waves and thinking, you know, we're talking about wind, we're talking about solar, but how to extract energy out of waves? And that was spawning in their mind about how we do that successfully, especially with the big storms. And that has led to Bombora's solution, which is a subsea wave energy converter. So I'm not sure whether the animation is going to work that well across this forum, but basically Bombora's device is a subsea device pumping air through a turbine and using membranes to transfer the energy of the waves in the form of pressure derived from the height of water above the device to create airflow through a turbine. So it's a very simple device. Importantly, it's modular. So each of these cells here is around a 200 kilowatt cell. These cells are placed together to form an array and pump air through a turbine. And there you see the air recirculating back through the system. So when we came to Wales, we'd gone through the testing at small scale, we'd gone through testing at mid scale, and we came to Wales to go to full scale. And out of the testing we'll be doing here with the Pembrokeshire Project, we're developing a product range, much the same as MPS. We have solutions which are fixed to the seabed. We have floating solutions which are wave-centric. We also have integrated solutions which are combining wind and wave. And these are all based on a very simple modular structure that we can then attach onto different platforms. Okay, so back to the Pembrokeshire Project. So this dream started back in 2017 and is now coming to fruition here in Wales. We will be commissioning the first half of 2021 in the marine energy test area here in Pembrokeshire. That was promoted by the Marine Energy Wales Group and supported by EIDF funding through the Welsh European Funding Office. So it's a significant undertaking, a £19 million project. And so this is delivering a fair injection of capital into the local economy. So just in terms of some of the things going on, you'll see our offices here on the right-hand side of the picture in that funny C-shaped building. Next door to us, we have Altrad. They've been busy fabricating cell modules. You'll see one here on the lower left. They've been transported across town down to Mainstay Marine for final assembly. And there in the background, you'll see some of the remainder of the main structure. We then integrate our valve system that was done at Blackfish over in Bristol. The heart of the system is the membrane. You see here there's a very large rubber casting, or not a, it's a layup of rubber, which is then vulcanized and stretched over the aperture of the cell module. As you can see, very substantial size. Another key component, there's the guide vanes for the turbine, being done locally again. So just in terms of the economic impact. So as I mentioned before, a £19 million project. 85% of those contracts have been awarded already. And interestingly, the same as Graham has mentioned, very high content in the UK, and also very, very high local content as well. That's local content right in the Pembrokeshire region. We came here in 2017 with only 4 staff. We now have 26. And I guess these are skilled workers. These, we're bringing skilled engineering, skilled technology people into the region. And that is also flowing out into the supply chain as well. Our plan is that we'll continue to grow as we get on the path of commercial projects, and our indications are that our workforce will treble over the next 3 years. I mentioned the fact that we've got 26 staff internally, but that's flowed out into 45 jobs sustained locally in the supply chain. All right, so we have the same sort of picture. In our case, we have a large concentration of our local suppliers here within Pembrokeshire that are supporting our project. But it does, of course, go out across the UK, right up as far as Orkney. I see poor old Layton Marine missed out on the mention on this picture, but they've been a very active part of our project as well, but right across the UK. And I guess the other interesting thing is that a lot of these companies traditionally weren't involved in renewable energy, but are now transitioning that way. So previously they might have been oil and gas, previously shipbuilding and the likes. And what we're seeing there is that through the project they're doing with us, they're upskilling into new areas. I guess also important is that we are very active in the STEM area. So strong linkages in research and educational groups. And so we do see that the academic linkages and the like are very important to our progress as well. So I guess great engagement across the whole of the UK. I guess importantly though for Wales, very strong engagement in Wales and especially in Pembrokeshire, which has certainly been in need of injections of new industry to bring sustainable jobs into the region. So the future is a global opportunity. Wave energy is around the globe, albeit, there's a great opportunity across Europe. So whether it's Ireland, Scotland, Cornwall, Southern Wales, there are great resources that we can tap into. And we have a range of products that can take us there. Interestingly, we've projected the same way Graham has done our LCOE using very sophisticated models and techniques. Just yesterday, the Ocean Energy Europe group put out their latest report and shows that, yes, over a very short time, wave energy and tidal energy can become competitive. But the issue is that in the short term, it isn't competitive, and we need to have support, very clear support mechanism in place, which enable us to bring more investment into our companies and bring investment into projects that can enable the industry to grow. So I guess what's the key message for me? It's, there's a pathway that companies like ourselves would go through, from early phase development through to becoming a mature industry. Along the way, there's a role for governments to play in terms of catalysts, providing catalysts to the industry. And Helen mentioned that there's the Smart Company grants and those sorts of things. They're great for starting up the companies. We've been able to take advantage of the EIDF and WEFO type grant schemes that have enabled us to scale up a business. Looking forward though, if we want to maintain the momentum that we've established, we need certainty around a CFD scheme, an IPPA scheme and the likes, which will enable us to have certainty around our projects and how to get investment into those projects. Once our LCOE is down at the mature level, we don't require further support. Then it's time for the industry to mature, and I guess the economy reaps the benefits of those. And so I guess the outcomes are, by providing those catalysts into the industry, we create great outcomes. We get inward investment in, we build the knowledge economy, we go through the industry transformation, create the industry scale up, and there's also the export opportunity beyond that. And I guess the challenge I think we have right now is that we need, in the UK, a clear direction of what's beyond EIDF and the WEFO type situation, what's going to come behind that in terms of innovation funding, those sorts of things. And we need some clarity around the CFD, the buckets that are made available to wave energy, buckets made available to tidal energy, to enable us to get project finance in place to get these projects going. A very exciting future there for us, but we need certainty. So that'd be my key message. Thank you for your time, and I'm back to Sue. Thank you.
Sam, thank you so much, and thank you to all of the speakers. It is strange times when we're talking to each other from our sitting rooms, but thank you to all of you for taking part. And I've been watching avidly the questions coming in from a very large audience who are spread over a very large area. So what I'm going to try and do now in the remaining 12 minutes we have is capture some of those questions and direct them to panel members. If anybody else listening to this webinar has any questions that are burning, please do put them in the chat and I'll try and include them. It seems to me that we have an opportunity here. We have technology and we understand our route to commercialization and how we're hoping to reduce the levelized cost of energy. One of the questions that came in was really around the development projects. And we know, as I mentioned, we have a large number of megawatts that are in development. These are sites that are being developed through the consenting process, acquiring grid and looking to buy technology. At the moment, they're being developed with the uncertainty of revenue. We don't know whether marine energy will have access to a revenue system going forward, given that the contracts for difference at the moment is not really fit for purpose for this sector. One of the questions came forward that if we were to see access to revenue, how would we scale up? And I think I'd like to direct this to Oliver first. The two projects that were mentioned were PTEC on the Isle of Wight and Mullice up in Anglesey. And if we were to have access to revenue, Oliver, can you envisage what would that mean in terms of building technology? Would it be built here in the UK? And what would that look like? What do you need to serve these projects? Oliver, over to you. I think Oliver has disconnected and we did have some problems with his presentation. So perhaps I'll go straight to Graham. Graham, how do you feel about if there is access, like in the Celtic Sea, large-scale projects come online and there's access to revenue? What's the vision for marine power systems going forward?
From our point of view, of course, we acknowledge that scaling up any business is challenging. However, I think what we've got in the UK is a very good supply chain in areas such as fabrication. There's companies out there that have high capacity for the large scale power electronics, the power takeoff equipment. So from my point of view, I would say that we won't try and do it all ourselves in the first instance. We'll utilize a wide-ranging supply chain, and what we'll do is gradually decide where we as a company add the most value and need to place the most control, and this will be around the high value parts of the system. And then we'll also decide where the best place to utilize the supply chain in, and probably that would be large scale fabrications, which may benefit from being closer to the actual projects themselves. That would be our strategy, Sue.
Thanks, Graham. And Sam, you showed some excellent images of the large-scale devices you're building in Wales at the moment. What's your thoughts? Access to projects, what does that mean in terms of scaling up for Bombora?
So, thanks, Sue. Once we have certainty around projects, then we can plan the supply chain scale up. Our approach to business is we're a light company. Our intention is to engage supply chain expertise. That means in Wales, it means across the UK, wherever we need to support projects. So once we have certainty around the project revenues, project consenting, then we're able to actually plan that scale up. I feel there's great capability, as Graham has mentioned, in the supply chain today in the UK. We don't need new industry. We can in fact leverage the existing industries and help, engage with them to deliver these projects.
Thanks, Sam. And Helen, you alluded to Monesto's fabrication facility. Yeah. Could you tell us a bit more about that? Because obviously Monesto are building that kind of capability in Wales already.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one, the way that they've looked at that. They're looking at operations and maintenance and small scale sort of assembly on site with some of the, obviously, they've got an extensive sort of supply chain in the UK and back in Sweden. As well, and what they're looking to do within the new facility, from what I've been told, is that they're looking at doing some of the sub-assemblies, doing a lot of the technical work on site, where they're taking the device in and out of the water. So they've got that capability to do a quick turnaround work on the vessel installed. I mean, moving from that, and perhaps looking at some of Graham's and sort of Sam's sort of comments, for me as a policymaker and working within the sector, it's very difficult to bring businesses from other industries such as automotive and aerospace if there's no clarity on projects line, because you find that obviously a lot of these businesses have got to invest heavily in production facilities, etc. And it's that certainty that they're looking for from a policy perspective and an investment perspective for the sector to grow and grow with it.
Thanks, Helen. And I think you've touched on an important point that we perhaps haven't alluded to in this panel, which is around diversification of existing skills and expertise. You know, from the Milford Haven and from the oil and gas sector in Scotland, Craig, around the need to diversify and bring people into this sector where innovation is growing. From Scottish Government's perspective, Craig, you know, there's been a lot of big build happening in Scotland, in Dundee and in Nig. A lot of the early projects and a lot of the early technologies developed at EMEC were built in Scotland. What's the importance of securing that local benefit to Scotland at the moment?
Well, it's absolutely vital. So it's what's driven Scottish Government's interest in investments in the sector to date. Is seeing the benefits further down the line in terms of jobs and economic value. What I would say in terms of scaling the sector, you know, I mean, we have projects in Scotland that are that have been involved in previous CFD rounds, and I'm not betraying any confidences there. That are ready to deploy at some level of scale. We have, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we've got fantastic transferable skills and expertise from our shipbuilding, ports and harbours infrastructure and facilities that are already being used and can be used going forward. But the supply chain, we'll come back to that point on certainty. The supply chain itself needs the certainty to get excited about marine energy, and I think that we're really on the cusp of something here in that respect. We can't risk them getting fatigued by marine energy, but I think we're on the cusp of really exciting the supply chain in that respect.
Just briefly, Oliver, I know you dropped out, but one of the questions is very much about the opportunity for O2 here in the UK, the opportunity for Orbital. If you were given access to developed sites and access to revenue, what's the vision for Orbital in terms of building technology here in the UK?
Yeah, thanks very much, Sue. I mean, the vision, surely has to be to take this, as I showed you, kind of 75 to 80% UK content that we're talking about here, and really try and drive that as hard as we possibly can up to, realistically, actually 100% UK content. That is not unfeasible here. Now, one of the key bits I showed you, the key part of the supply chain puzzle that's missing at the moment in terms of our UK content story for the O2 is both the pitch and hub and also the nacelle. And as I mentioned previously, those component parts, whilst the orders technically go through the UK office of SKF, it would be disingenuous for us to say that that was UK content. They're being built, and we're very open about this, they're being built in Sweden and in Germany. For the SR2000 at Orbital, we actually built the nacelles ourselves. We decided it was a more sustainable growth pathway for us to outsource this, to bring in the external expertise of a large OEM like SKF with their credibility that they have working in the wind energy sector, and to help with the reliability condition monitoring, to help improve the overall reliability of the system. It is something that we have entered a discussion with SKF about. At what point do we start manufacturing all of this within the UK? And in fact, there is track record on that side of setting up manufacturing facilities within the UK. They do have a supply company that supplies bearings into the train industry in the UK. The reason that SKF made that investment of several £1 million in that manufacturing facility in the UK is because they could see a clear market. They had a lot of work in the UK and they could see onward orders coming through in that point. And that's really what we want to see. We want to see a clear indication in auction round 4 from the CFD, clear intent from government to support the tidal energy sector, but in combination with that, a longer line of site signal. You mentioned there's a gigawatt of sites in development at the moment, and really what we need to see is it's not just support for auction round 4, it's also for auction round 5 and for auction round 6, so that we can start building out this development profile over a longer time, so we can provide certainty to our supply chain partners.
Thank you, Oliver. We're rapidly running out of time, so I'm going to try and run through a few of the resounding questions. One of the things we were talking about, and I'm not going to give them to the panel, I'm going to take my chair's prerogative and answer very quickly. We are going to allow you, audience, to have the opportunity to carry on asking the panel questions, which is very generous of them. But what we will do, we'll take those questions and we'll give you an email address to those who didn't get the opportunity to ask a question, to forward that on to the panel, and through the Marine Energy Council we'll try and respond. One of the questions that came up was route to market and levelized cost of energy. You would have seen from both Graham and Sam's presentations, marine energy has the opportunity to come into competition with our more accepted forms of renewable energy, so that of fixed offshore wind, with development. So each of the companies has looked at their own levelized cost of energy and how we project down that cost curve, but we're confident both with the in-house capabilities within companies really reviewing how to drive cost out of their technology, but also the work that we did with the offshore renewable energy catapult as a sector to project our levelized cost of energy, that this form of technology, both wave and tidal, within time will become cost competitive with other forms of renewables. What we need now is a strong signal from government that that is their intent. and that will drive forward private investment and bring forward projects that are looking to access revenue systems. The second was around storage and grid. Clearly, companies recognise that the resource that we're trying to extract, wave energy from waves, tidal energy from tidal streams that flow in both directions on both stages of the tide, could be in remote locations. How do we maximise our grid capability? How do we work with the grid to reduce cost? And how do we make grid accessible for this technology? These are all areas that are being reviewed by the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, and innovation is being driven through the Energy Systems Catapult and also a lot of the projects that are running at the moment. Lastly, I think it's really important just to highlight the importance of this sector. The UK has a really strong maritime engineering skills and heritage. We know how to do this. We're delivering electrons onto the grid, and we need real support from government to make sure that this moves forward and that we deliver the sector. I'd just like to thank again all of my panelists and the organisers of All Energy for what is a complex time and a complex mechanism for delivering these presentations. I think we've had some real insights and some fantastic snapshots of what is happening in the sector. And I can only encourage you all to support us as we move forward in lobbying bays for access to revenue. And let's have a marine energy industry here in the UK. Please remember, you can view all of the All Energy webinars on the website. There is an on-demand section on the All Energy website. And I thank you all for joining us, both my panelists, the All Energy team, and you, the audience, who we've been unable to see, but we appreciate your support. Any future questions, please do send them on to the All Energy team, and we'll endeavour to get back to you. Thank you very much, and I'd like to draw a close to this session. Thank you all. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers.